Hi and welcome to day 7 of my 12 Days of Christmas card series. I'm going to be featuring some stamps from Suzy Stamps today. I'll be making 2 cards and I'll just run through this first one here. So I started off with the sentiment and I stamped that onto some glittery white cardstock. And I decided I wanted to make the first card really glittery and really Christmassy, so I stamped that down using my Fiskars stamp press. I inked it up with some pigment ink. I used red pigment ink as I'm going to be putting red embossing powder, glittery embossing powder over the top, and I like to use a pigment ink when I do this to make sure that any gaps in the glitter are covered by the ink below. So I sprinkled on that embossing powder and flicked the excess off at the back, and I just used a dry fluffy brush to clean up any areas where that embossing powder is stuck where I don't want it to, and then I heat set the sentiment. So I really love this sentiment. I really like to do Christmassy things each day in December, and today I'm going to be watching The Grinch because it's one of my favourite Christmas movies. And I like this sentiment as it reminds everyone that Christmas, it's not just about the gifts and the gift giving. I think sometimes we can get a little bit caught up with, the materialistic things. And that's why this sentiment has inspired me to send some charity gifts. So I've used some glitter cardstock here again, this time in silver, to create 3 different size gift boxes, and I'm just applying some twine onto the front of those so it looks like a present all kind of wrapped up. Once I've got those in place, I'm just bringing in an A2 sized side folded note card. I'm just reinforcing that score line with my bone folder, and then I'm going to completely cover the 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch front panel with the same glitter cardstock that I used to make the presents. As I said, I wanted this first card to be really glittery and really Christmassy, as I'm definitely feeling in the Christmas spirit at the moment. So I'm going to layer on top the white glitter cardstock with the stamped sentiment, and again I'm just going to apply ATG tape all over the back and then place that on top. I made sure to cut the white panel to 1/8 of an inch smaller on each side, so just a small amount of the silver cardstock would show up. So I'm going to stick down the first present. I want this to look as though it's at the back, so I'm sticking that down flat, and with the glitter texture of the cardstock I'm just making sure that that sticks down perfectly by placing an acrylic block over the top. I've covered the other 2 presents with 3D foam dots. I'm just making sure that first one's fully stuck down, and then I'll peel off these backings and place those over the top to create a kind of like a stack of presents on the front of the card. So I think when you have a really nice sentiment like this, you don't need to do too much else to the card. I think the sentiment kind of speaks for itself, and it's nice just to have a couple of present images that complement this sentiment really well. So once I've laid those up, I'm going to glue down the cute little red and white twine ribbon bows that I created using the same bow as the parcel wrapping on the gifts. I'm using my multimedia matte glue, so if any of that glue squishes out the side behind the ribbon, you won't be able to see that once it's dry on my card. Okay, so that's the first card all finished, and I'm going to take you straight into the second card, again using the same sentiment from Suzy Stamps. This time I've got a top folding A2 size note card, and I'm going to rub some Versamark clear ink over the edges. I think this is a really nice way to give a distressed kind of embossed finish to your cards. So I'm just rubbing that on. I'm not being too careful how I apply that, as we want this to be a kind of a grungy look anyway. I'm going to sprinkle on some Ranger liquid platinum embossing powder around all 4 sides. So before I heat set that, I want to remove any harsh straight edges, so again I'm just bringing in a fluffy brush and I'm just going to gently rub along each of those lines just to give them more of a distressed look and an uneven finish instead of any of those harsh straight lines that the ink pad would have created. As the Versamark ink is clear, you shouldn't be able to see this too much once it's dried, and I'll just heat set that powder. Okay, so now that all of that's heat set, I'm going to bring in a piece of paper that I've also just smushed down some of that Versamark ink and heat set some of the Ranger powder. I wanted to have a coordinating cardstock that perfectly matched the embossing around the edges, and this was the easiest way to create that. So I'm die cutting the sketch gift from Simon Says Stamp out of the embossed cardstock and then out of some white cardstock, and I'm going to use a die cut inlay technique to put this together. Before I do that, I just wanted to add a little bit of colour to the bow section of the gift, and I'm just using my Spectrum Noir alcohol ink markers to do that. You could use any markers that you have, a Sharpie or a coloured pencil would work just as well. So now I've got my Stamp-A-Majig. I love my Stamp-A-Majig. I think it's great for lining sentiments up on a card. So I've just stamped that down. I had originally thought about using gold ink, but I decided that I wanted a nice black ink on my card. Once I've got that all in place exactly where I want it, I can stamp down the sentiment using some black ink. And then I'm going to pour on some clear embossing powder just to add a bit of shine to that sentiment. If you have a MISTI stamping tool, that would work just as well to make sure you get perfect placement of your rubber stamps. Okay, so once that is all heat set, the last thing to do to finish off this card is to add back in the sketch gift. I decided to use the gold coloured outline for the gift and then fill in the inside with that red ribbon with the black centre and then the white sections from the inside. Again, I'm using my Ranger Multimedia mat. I'm squirting that into the open spaces and just fitting back together the die cut pieces, sort of like a puzzle piece. I think this is a really nice way to add a little bit extra to your die cuts. You could cut them out of different coloured cardstock if you didn't want to have to colour in the bow section, or you could just leave it all white. I think that would look really nice and clean and simple on the front of this card. To add a little bit of extra glitter, I'm going in with the Wink of Stella clear brush glitter pen, there we go, and just adding some glitter onto the top of the white sections, and then I'm going to use the Ranger's Christmas red stickles to add some glitter glue to the ribbon. Thank you for putting up with me today. I appreciate my voice isn't the easiest to listen to at the moment as I've got a cold and that's coming across in my audio recording, so I apologise for that, but it definitely is the season for any kind of cold or flu or bugs, so hopefully you guys are watching this in good health and not suffering like I appear to be today. Okay, so there you have the second card. Now just before we go, I wanted to show you something that I've got from Oxfam. They do gifts all year round, but I think they're really nice to send at Christmas. That way you can help a family that's not as fortunate as your own. So I decided to send some chickens on behalf of some of my friends, and they can be used to help to feed a family, and they can also raise some income from the eggs that they can sell. Okay, so if you decided that maybe Christmas does come from a store just a little bit and you want to include a gift card inside of your cards, you can get some die sets like these ones from My Favourite Things, which cut a hole in a card panel. You can have it in the horizontal or the vertical format. You can cut them like this, or also just these little tabs at the side to include a gift card. I've put this on the left hand side so I can still write a message on the right hand side just there. So there we go, thank you for joining me for day 7. I hope that you've enjoyed this stamp from So Suzy Stamps. They currently have free worldwide shipping, so if you are inspired to shop, I'll leave a link in the link section just below. So thank you so much for joining me for day 7. I will be back again on Tuesday with day 8 of the 12 Days of Christmas holiday series. Bye for now.